to this man. The ball's on some people. So essentially, this woman was helping to facilitate the theft of this $225,000 to then funnel it to McCluskey's wife, who wanted to sit her ass at home and collect a paycheck. She also has been accused of illegally writing off $1 million for things like luxury purses. Yes. But I think this actually speaks to a broader problem, which is money in politics. I mean, the last presidential election, Kamala Harris had $1.5 billion.
$2.5 billion.
$2.5 billion.
There's a civil war going on in MAGA, and it's not just the Epstein files. I think somebody finally told Trump that he cannot be seen as being on the side of concealing the Epstein files. We need this to come out. You're basically telling the women of America that they don't matter.
Right. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, to her credit, has been trying to be a good influence on Trump in getting him to release the files.
I have to say, I used to think this woman was a raging lunatic. I used to call her Marjorie Taylor Grease.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
But now I like her.
Americans are complaining about the price of food. So as someone who works in the restaurant industry, what is the reality?
100% on that. People are struggling out there for sure.
We have Americans in this country who are capable of doing incredible things. We need to invest in them.
You have these universities teaching American kids to hate America. And then they're bringing in foreigners and they're teaching foreigners to hate America. And this is not an economic zone.
What's up, friends? Welcome to Her Take. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and as always, we have an incredible show ahead for you today. Obviously, we're going to dip into the Jeffrey Epstein files. We have two different angles to that story that we're going to tackle, including journalist Michael Wolff's strange relationship with Epstein and whether or not he breached journalistic ethics in the way he interacted with Epstein. We're also going to talk a little bit about President Donald Trump essentially cutting ties with one of his longtime allies, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lindy is going to take us away with that story, give us all the details. Also, Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff is embroiled in a massive federal criminal case for allegedly stealing up to $225,000 from a dormant campaign account. We're also going to talk about Trump's pretty controversial interview with Laura Ingraham and what he is essentially saying about H-1B visas and American workers. And we'll end on a discussion about the BBC's coverage of Donald Trump and how they essentially spliced together one of his speeches to make it seem like he was saying something he didn't actually say. But before we get to all of that, I want to introduce our wonderful guest for today. We've got Libby Emmons, editor-in-chief of the Post-Millennial and Human Events. She's also a contributor to the New York Post. We also have Laura Padrino. She's a devout Christian, wife, mother, third-generation restaurant owner. And she's been celebrating 50 years for these restaurants. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Lindy, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this fallout between Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. We're going to get to that in just a second. But we're going to start off the show today on Epstein's relationship with journalist Michael Wolff, who's really been able to sell a lot of books about Donald Trump thanks to the intel he gathered through his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So let me give you all the details. So we now have a clearer picture forming in regard to who Jeffrey Epstein was close to and which powerful individuals he worked on behalf of. And that's due to the House Oversight Committee, both Democrats and Republicans in two different instances, releasing some of Epstein's emails. In addition to that, prior to the House Oversight Committee releasing some emails, we had a hack of Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak's emails as well. So again, we're starting to get a lot more information about who Epstein was running around with and who he was close to. Now, it's clear that President Donald Trump was not happy with the fact that people haven't really let go of the Epstein issue. And just recently, he said, OK, fine. I hope that the House votes in favor of releasing the Epstein files. We can discuss that in just a minute. But for the purposes of this segment, let's talk about journalist Michael Wolff and his relationship with Epstein, because he's getting a lot of backlash due to his conduct as a quote-unquote journalist, right? So Wolff is the author of the 2018 best-selling book Fire and Fury, which focused on Donald Trump, did not paint Donald Trump in a positive light. Now, Wolff seemed to have ingratiated himself quite a bit with Jeffrey Epstein. He says he did it in order to get Epstein to talk, to give him information. So here's an excerpt from The Atlantic describing how Wolf was brought up in the context of the Jeffrey Epstein emails. He says, "I think you should let him hang himself," meaning Donald Trump. Wolf wrote to Epstein about Trump in December of 2015. If he says he hasn't been on the plane, meaning Epstein's plane, or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. In October of 2016, after the release of a tape in which Trump boasted about sexual assault, of course, that's the audio where he talked about grabbing women and kissing them without their permission, Wolf wrote to Epstein that he could speak about Trump in such a way that could garner you great sympathy and help finish him. So clearly, this email makes it abundantly clear that Michael Wolff wasn't just interviewing Epstein to get information from him. He wasn't just ingratiating himself with Epstein to get information from him. He was literally serving as more of an advisor than anything else. Now, we've got a lot more to get to in this story, but before I get to more details, very, very curious. Let me ask you, because, you work in journalism, you have for a long time. Do you feel that this breaches journalistic ethics, or do you think this is fair play?
I do think it's a breach of journalistic ethics. I think it's crazy to be advising your sources on how they can use information to attack a presidential candidate. That seems to just go really above and beyond what you're supposed to be doing, where you're asking questions, you're getting information, but you're not taking a side necessarily in your source's story, which I think you should probably not be doing,
Right.
At least not to this extent. This seems pretty wild.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the worst of access journalism, and it's exemplified by people like Michael Wolff, people like Maggie Haberman. I used to call her MAGA Haberman because President Trump used to call Maggie his shrink. And so when you start to blur those lines, all the ethics of journalism essentially crumble. Where's the line between that? And Michael Wolff was actually shopping around the tapes of his conversations with Jeffrey Epstein to a number of different outlets, and he got... no one wanted to take him up on it.
I think the Daily Beast published
eventually,
it. Yeah.
Eventually, but at first, nobody wanted to take him up on it because he had so little credibility in the journalistic world.
Yeah, and I think also if you're going to be that partisan, you should have a responsibility as a journalist to say so, right? You need to express
but he didn't.
that.
He pretended
No, he certainly didn't. He certainly did.
He pretended to be a friend who's giving him advice. Now, some might ask, well, why was Epstein so obsessed with destroying Donald Trump? Remember, this is in 2015 and 2016. So there are two things that had happened that led to Trump's falling out with Jeffrey Epstein, allegedly. So we do know that Epstein and Trump were once close, but they had this falling out. One reason was over a supposed real estate deal that they were fighting over. The second reason, which is what Trump said on the record, was due to the fact that Epstein was stealing his girls from Mar-a-Lago. And we did learn that Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's victims, was an employee at Mar-a-Lago when Ghislaine Maxwell had recruited her and groomed her to be abused. So the email has upset people close to Wolff, including Joanna Coles, who he actually does a podcast with for the Daily Beast. And so I want to go to this moment where she essentially confronts him about the issue here. Take a look.
What I want to say is, in this particular email, it sounds like you're advising a convicted pedophile about what to do, and you're colluding with him against a potential.
Well, I don't know. What emails sound like? Would one have rewritten them in hindsight? Yeah, of course. Emails always are. Oh, that's embarrassing.
Now, Wolff even tried to explain that, look, this is just what you do as a journalist, right? You have to ingratiate yourself with your sources to get them to talk. Let's take a quick look at that portion of this conversation.
Well, part of my entree here, that I knew about the media. That gave me the kind of cachet that got me a place at the table, which has gotten me the Epstein story, if anyone wanted to pay attention.
Right, so this is 2015.
Yeah, I'm the person who sees this elemental story. Donald Trump, and I've gone through this with Epstein deep into the background. Donald Trump is the best friend of, evil. I mean, he is the best friend of a deeply, deeply diabolical person.
So there you have Michael Wolff referring to Jeffrey Epstein as a deeply diabolical person who, again, he did, in my opinion, more than just ingratiate himself. He kind of served as an advisor. I want to give you one more example, and this is from an excerpt in the New York Times. In one of the emails from December of 2015, Wolff said CNN had planned to ask Trump about his relationship with Epstein. This is in the context of a presidential debate, then canceled Epstein on next steps. Like, why do you need to engage in that type of advising in order to get your source to answer questions? And when he was asked, look, how far is too far when it comes to ingratiating yourself with your sources? Here's what he had to say. I think you draw the line at what you write. Ingratiation stops there, he replied, citing his damning reporting on Epstein in an essay in his book, Too Famous. That's what the ingratiation earned me. And then in a video on Instagram this week, he lamented that his release of tapes of Epstein talking about Trump before the 2024 election had little impact. So, Libby, what do you make of that, right? He's trying to say, no, I'm just ingratiating myself, nothing more. But he doesn't really answer to the fact that he was literally advising Epstein. I should note, Trump wasn't asked about the Epstein files in the context of that CNN debate. So on top of advising Epstein, it seems like he was also just lying to Epstein to try to get information out of him.
Right. I mean, I think that Wolff really wanted there to be something between Trump and Epstein that he could run with and say, Trump is an evil guy. This is the stuff he did with Epstein. But that never shows up anywhere. There is no smoking gun. And if there was a smoking gun, we would have seen it. We would have seen it in the Biden administration when his entire Department of Justice was geared toward going after Trump. If they had something like this, we would have seen it, right? And we haven't seen it. It does not appear to exist. I think probably what Trump has been saying about Epstein for all of this time, he was not a guy that I liked. I kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, all of this stuff. I think that's probably more close to the truth. And I thought it was interesting to hear Trump demand that the Epstein files be released, because at this point it is such, and it's like it came up during the campaign.
Right.
He was like, sure, go ahead, release it, whatever. And then it became a thing where everyone was saying he was campaigning on it. I think that's a little not exactly true.
I mean,
and now
he's
it's
certainly
distracting from his policy, and he doesn't like when things distract from his successes.
He was the one who was saying himself, I'm going to release the Epstein files. He's the one who made it an issue. He was the one who made it a relevant topic. Nobody else would. Actually, I think he was the loudest spokesperson in this regard. I do want to say, though, not only is there no evidence, no smoking gun whatsoever that President Trump is involved in the sex trafficking.
So far,
so far,
right.
The victims have said time and time again, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, that President Trump had nothing to do with it.
Well, the thing that Pauline, I want to ask you about this, your thoughts and your opinion about this, because I think what makes Trump look bad so far is the fact that there have been some emails pointing to Trump knowing that this disgusting stuff was going on with Epstein, because there was that one email in which it was clear that Trump had told him, stop doing this. The email made clear that, apparently Trump had been in a room with Virginia Giuffre for hours. Now, remember, Giuffre has said she's no longer alive. She died by suicide. But she had said that Trump had done nothing wrong. So I don't think there's anything shady about him being in a room with her, considering the fact that she had cleared him of any wrongdoing. But the point is, after he left the room, he apparently talked to Epstein and said, stop doing this. But obviously, he didn't come out and publicly talk about what Epstein was doing and victimizing all these girls. Do you think that alone might be one of the reasons why Trump didn't want the Epstein files to be released?
I'm not sure about any of it. I don't know why it has been something that he said he was going to do and he hasn't. It's all been very interesting. The binders and Bondi, all of that stuff. I was shocked by all of it as the people, as the influencers that went thinking that they were going to get some information. So. But for me, this is just, and this, I always find this, maybe is this, I don't know, this is always like my little It's always what pops up to me is the double standard. That's always what I'm able to find. So I do believe, now I think obviously Trump as the president is held to a higher standard, but Trump and Epstein to me is no different than prior to him being president, Oprah and Harvey Weinstein or J-Lo and a Diddy. They knew and they were very much a part of, and that's the thing, I actually think Trump might have known and there was maybe interactions, didn't like it, kind of told him to stop. I don't know if Oprah and Weinstein, it was the same kind of thing. I don't know if J-Lo and Diddy, it was the same kind of thing. It's just, to me, it's why does he get the scrutiny of even knowing him and then others don't get that? I'm not saying Trump is innocent by any means, and I do think that he has his stuff. I think this is interesting why I don't understand. I really don't get why they're not just releasing it. There's something there.
I think there's a difference between Epstein and P. Diddy and Harvey Weinstein. Epstein is a whole nother level of evil.
He is.
Sprawling, I just want to say the sprawling nature of this, it covers thousands of victims. And also,
and I'm not likening it to minimize it. I really am not. I'm just saying it's all the scrutiny and zero. And there's a little bit, it always seems to be the case that way. So it's for knowing somebody, you need to do more. You were a part of it because you knew of him. And again, not likening it or minimizing it because absolutely not.
I do not have a problem with anything you said. And you bring up a really interesting point that all the media attention has been on President Trump. What about the 26 flights that Bill Clinton took on Lolita Express? Why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we talking about Larry Summers, who repeatedly emailed Jeffrey Epstein? Why aren't we talking about the Israeli prime minister? Why aren't we talking? Oh, we did talk about Prince Andrew, who lost his.
And he is president, so he does have to be held to a higher standard. But there is, before that, he was just like any other, let's say, celebrity. He was the same as an Oprah.
And did we forget the fact that Melinda Gates divorced Bill Gates?
Because of their relationship, right, because of Gates' relationship with Epstein. Man, I have so many things to say because you both actually reminded me of various things that I really want to bring up. Number one, in regard to Ehud Barak's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So Ehud Barak, for anyone who might not be familiar with him, former prime minister of Israel who had a very close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So one of the things that has come up, one of the big questions that's come up in regard to what Jeffrey Epstein was really up to was whether or not he was actually working with intelligence agencies, whether it's the CIA or Mossad. And Drop Site News has done a really, really good job poring over these emails and finding the connections, finding the links of basically Epstein giving advice, political and strategic advice, to members of the Israeli government. And I'm sure that there's going to be other emails that might even tie Jeffrey Epstein to other intelligence services for other countries as well. But the point that I'm trying to make is this wasn't merely a disgusting pervert who was victimizing young girls. That's bad enough. But there's this question of whether or not there was a blackmail operation taking place in order to essentially help various foreign countries, in the case of the United States, have control over our elite, over our political leaders. And Libby, I'm curious what you think about that, because that was so conspiratorial before.
I mean, there's definitely some weird stuff going on, right? Like we saw a video where the delegate for the U.S. Virgin Islands in the House, Stacey Plaskett, was texting with Epstein during Donald Trump's impeachment trial and in Congress and, taking notes from him and saying, wait, who are you talking about? And then asking those questions to people who were testifying in that, to Michael Cohen, right? She was asking Michael Cohen questions based on what Epstein was texting her in real time. That's crazy. Why was she taking that, why was she taking those notes from this convicted...
Why was she in touch with Epstein?
Sex offender. That's a big thing, too. And then you also had, I know we're going to talk about MTG later, but she was saying that she doesn't believe Trump is involved in the Epstein stuff, but that perhaps the interest in not releasing it is because it's a cover-up for all of the other powerful people who may be involved.
Very possible.
And that goes to your point. Whether you're talking about Epstein or whether you're talking about Diddy or Harvey Weinstein, there is a problem of powerful people wanting to protect other powerful people, right? It's a through line in so many of these stories.
Anna, that's such a good point. And I don't know what you guys are doing last night, but I was reading Virginia's memoir, and I was gutted. Absolutely gutted. And I want to underscore that hundreds of powerful men knew, hundreds, okay? This is not just like a scattering of men around the country. Hundreds of American men embedded in our elite universities like Harvard, they knew what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. People, fundraisers who were raising millions of dollars for these university endowments, the people that Jeffrey Epstein wanted to hang out with. Because remember, he was a college dropout and he wanted to get the credibility. He wanted the adulation and the love of these very smart people. And so all of these men knew, and they didn't say a word.
Yeah.
It was a total conspiracy of silence. And they still wouldn't have said a word had these brave victims not come forward. Yeah. You know?
And remember, Jeffrey Epstein was prosecuted in, I believe it was 2006. And people like Larry Summers kept a very friendly relationship with him after. Yeah, and despite that. So I think now would be a good time to kind of pivot over to just this whole drama of releasing the Epstein files, the refusal to release the Epstein files, and how it's created a pretty big rift between President Donald Trump and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Take it away, Lindy.
Oh man, guys, so much is going on. And even since I first started producing this segment, and right now, a lot has changed. Last night, I don't know if you guys saw, but President Trump asked for House Republicans to vote to release the Epstein files. There's scheduled to be a vote on Tuesday, so this is a huge 180. I bet somebody finally told him it is totally to his detriment to be taking the stance that he was, which is to be fighting the base of his party who wants the Epstein files to be released. He is now up against MTG, Thomas Massie, Ro Khanna's effort to release the Epstein files. And the victims actually signed a letter saying, we need this. We need this to come out. It's not just about us. It's about all the women in this country. You're basically telling the women of America that they don't matter. If the files don't come out, our lives don't matter. But he's made a U-turn. So a lot has changed in the last intervening hours. But
before you get to that, Lindy, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because prior to Trump saying that he would like the House to vote in favor of releasing the Epstein files, he had also announced that he wants to launch an investigation into all the Democrats. So what I'm a little bit concerned about in that regard is even if the House votes in favor of releasing the Epstein files, if people within the files are being investigated, that could allow for basically withholding documents.
That's a good point, and my concern is even greater than that, because let's consider what it takes to move legislation through the House and the Senate. Okay, if you want a veto-proof majority, you need 2/3 of the Senate. You think we're going to get that? And then it lands on his desk, you think he's going to sign it? So I'm just saying that he could just be saying that knowing it won't pass.
Maybe. We're going to have to wait and see. Right now, it's really based.
We must keep in mind,
right?
Because such a huge U-turn is like, it's a lot. It's a lot to digest. But right now, there's a civil war going on in MAGA, and it's not just the Epstein files. It's also everything that's going on with Tucker and Nick Fuentes. But this certainly doesn't help. But I think somebody finally told Trump that he cannot be seen as being on the side of concealing the Epstein files. It's just you know, somebody even said, I saw last night, that this is the hill that he was dying on.
Right. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, to her credit, has been trying to be a good influence on Trump in getting him to release the files. She does not believe that he is going to be incriminated by the files.
Yeah.
And so she really doesn't understand why he's kind of served as an obstacle in the release.
Anna, that's absolutely right. Connor, can we show the text message that MTG sent to President Trump? This is purely from Marjorie Taylor Greene's side. I have to say, I used to think this woman was a raging lunatic. She was the same person who stalked a shooting survivor from Parkland High School.
David Hogg, yeah.
Exactly. And I've had a lot of criticism for her over the years, but a lot of the stances that she's taken in recent months has seriously impressed me.
I agree with you on that.
I think it's just remarkable. She stood up for the American people, not only on the Epstein files, but also on immigration, also on healthcare, also on being truly America first rather than putting other nations first. So it's been impressive all around. And she's earned a fan in me. So in this text, she is essentially telling President Trump, you have nothing to hide here, so you gotta release the files. It will redound to your credit. It's baffling to me that he didn't take this position earlier on.
So let's read it for our audio audience.
I'm blind, I can't see.
All right, I can read it. So she writes to President Trump, check the flight logs of Epstein's plane. Bill Clinton is on there like 26 times, Hillary too. For many of us, releasing the Epstein files has always been about the women who were victims of Jeffrey Epstein, but also because we believed that Democrat bad guys like the Clintons were entangled and involved with him. Epstein was the spider that wove the web of the deep state. Lean into it. So she's giving him political advice, but also she's trying to make a point about why she's pursuing this effort in the first place.
Absolutely, Anna, thank you for that. Appreciate it. I should wear glasses. I just want to say that after she sent out this tweet, and well, after she showed the world their exchange, she has been inundated with threats, and she's been very vocal about the antics that her family has been subjugated to, which I think is extremely unfortunate. She even said, I spent millions fighting for President Trump, standing up for him, and but I don't worship or serve Donald Trump. I worship God, Jesus is my savior, and I serve my district and the American people. And I just think I'm sure she has other considerations, because she has critics who say this is a sour grapes phenomenon. She's upset that President Trump didn't support her aspirations to be senator of Georgia.
To be fair, though, that claim came from Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Okay, I had to put it out there. Do you think it's
I just don't
legitimate?
really trust her motivations here. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, as someone who obviously is very in the know about what the left has been saying, members of the left have been looking at Marjorie Taylor Greene and they're like, why is it that she's the one who's so vocal in wanting the release of the Epstein files? Why is she the one who's vocal about how, no, we really should extend the ACA subsidies because healthcare premiums are going to double and I don't want my constituents to suffer? You haven't heard much from AOC on those issues. She hasn't been as vociferous on it. And so she's been getting all this pushback. And in an effort to kind of like explain herself, she's basically saying, oh, no, Marjorie Taylor Greene is motivated by something entirely different. She's not doing the right thing just to do the right thing. So that's why I don't really care about her AOC's perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, AOC right now is having the best time ever because everyone is pushing Chuck Schumer right out of her way.
Right, that's
clearing
true.
her path for 2028 Senate run. She doesn't have to do anything right now except sit there, refresh her lipstick and look pretty.
Well, that's actually true. To be fair, I think that Chuck Schumer is the type of political dinosaur that really shouldn't have any political power at this point. But maybe that's what AOC really is doing. Maybe she's keeping her powder dry.
I mean, what's interesting about pushing Chuck Schumer out of the way, and I think Hakeem Jeffries will shortly follow, is that we really are seeing the full and complete ascendance of the far left progressives into the Democratic Party. It's pretty well taken over by the DSA. And so, we're going to see the dinosaurs pushed out. And while I agree with you that Chuck Schumer has really no place left in politics and in governing at this point, I think what's coming down the pike is going to be much scarier than he was.
Well, certainly interesting because there's having been inside that dinosaur, I have to tell you that there's a huge dichotomy between the AOC wing and everybody else. The money side wants nothing to do with AOC.
Is that
I have to tell you, I was on the National Finance Committee, and we never, ever, and this is not an exaggeration, never did an event with AOC, Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib, any of the squad. They were toxic.
That's why they're ascendant, though, among the electorate, right?
That's true, but I'm just saying, where the infrastructure is just somebody's got to meld the two, because the old guard is not going to go down without a fight.
Right, except AOC is the leading fundraiser in Congress. She's the one who brings in the most money. So she doesn't even need their old guard stuff. She doesn't need that. She's getting all new people. And I thought it was actually to her credit after Trump won in 2024 that she went out to her constituents and she said, okay, you voted for me and you voted for Trump. What's up? What's going on here?
I love that she did that because I think that the divisions in this country are actually what's toxic. And rather than otherizing people who voted for the other side, how about have a conversation and figure out what the reality is and how Americans are feeling. But I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. Let's go back to this feud between Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene, because Trump didn't take kindly to that text message that Marjorie Greene had sent him, and has been publicly distancing himself from her.
Exactly. And we talked about our good friend, Mark Levin, our favorite neoconservative last time. Exactly. So Mark Levin, the Randy Fines of the world, they're taking this opportunity to basically trash Marjorie Taylor Greene, not because of the Epstein files per se, but because of a separate issue, because she's part of the Tucker Carlson wing. So they're not letting a crisis go to waste. They are doing everything they can to basically torpedo her. And then President Trump himself tweeted truth about Marjorie Taylor Greene himself,
calling her a disgrace.
Exactly.
Calling her a traitor.
I actually think I have a better nickname. I used to call her Marjorie Taylor Grease.
Oh gosh.
Oh no.
But now I like her.
I do feel like she's matured quite a bit since she
has,
was first elected, and she's kind of proven herself to be sincere about wanting to actually take care of her constituents before anything else, which is rare in politics.
She apologized yesterday.
That is what is needed.
Because Americans really care about their quality of life. And that quality of life has been declining. I mean, it hasn't been great. Everyone knows their grocery bills are up. Everyone knows their healthcare costs are up. I mean, you go to a doctor and you pay something there, and then you get billed later, and you're like, but wait, I paid. What's going on? What is coinsurance? What are copays? You know, everybody knows that's all crazy. And so when you have Americans strapped like that, we really do need to trust that our representatives are there fighting for us. It's the people's house, and it's called that for a reason. And I think it's interesting, too, that so often you have Americans who like their elected representatives in the House, but they think the House is doing a terrible job, you know?
Yeah,
I just
totally.
think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I love what you just said, because I think Americans viscerally feel what the empirical data says. The empirical data now shows that the average age of a homeowner is 38 years old, which is insane. It used to be in your early 30s. Now it's 38. And then President Trump, I'm sorry, dude, but proposing a 50-year mortgage is not a good idea.
This is a terrible idea.
Terrible idea. You end up paying more to the bank.
And it's like you will never own a home, by the way, no matter how much you're paying.
Yes, exactly.
But the banks will make more money off you.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think he was seeing the fact that Republicans lost 2 weeks ago because of affordability, and he wanted to put out a measure signifying that he cares, but that was a terrible mistake. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's been very strong on health care. She said, even my own family, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
And by the way, 21 out of the 24 states that are most affected by the healthcare premiums going up are red states. These are Republican voters.
You're right. And actually, Laura, this is like an area where I feel like you can really shed your expertise and shed some light on what you've been experiencing in the restaurant industry, right? Because right now the Trump administration is sending mixed messages about what's happening with our economy. They want to argue that, no, this economy is booming, best economy ever. But Americans are complaining about the price of food. So as someone who works in the restaurant industry, and you know about the price of food and the added cost to the restaurant industry, what is the reality? Are prices actually going up? Is inflation continuing to be a problem, or is this just a made-up political issue?
It's interesting. So we are so blessed and so fortunate. So our restaurants are doing well, really, really well. I think that's God's favor. And I think it's because we have been really strategic to take all of these blows that are happening all around us that we have no control over. So we have been doing things to fight, let's say, those price increases. But not all restaurants are faring so well. What I understand from the community is that a lot are doing really, really poorly year over year. And closing, and they just can't take all of these hikes because you have to be very strategic. If the prices are increasing, you can't just obviously translate that to a guest price and what the price of the food is. So we're doing different things to make that happen successfully, and we have been. But I know that it is. I'm speaking in the minority, 100% on that. People are struggling out there for sure with all the hikes.
So the cost of doing business for restaurants has gone up. Some restaurants have decided to eat a portion of those costs to keep prices for their customers low or lower. But
what's worse is actually just the payroll, though. It's the minimum wage and all that. That is way more damaging to us than anything else is, because that one there's nothing really you can do about it. You just got to keep paying them more for the same work. Yeah. But something about Marjorie Taylor Greene that you said, I am so glad that she mentioned, I don't worship Trump. That her alliance and her allegiance is to the Lord, or let's say she's America first, like all of that, because there is a point where I would feel like she was she was really blindly worshiping this man. And so I like this. But you also mentioned that she was getting death threats. What side is that coming from? Who is attacking her?
Republicans, because they see her as a traitor.
As a traitor.
Exactly.
I would say, I wouldn't even say Republicans, because I'm seeing a groundswell of support for Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, by the way, who's also been a target of Donald Trump's. There's, in my opinion, increasingly dwindling group of Trump's base that wants to stick by him no matter what. They're almost sycophantic about it. And so they're probably the ones who are going after Massie and Greene, but the pocketbook speaks.
Going after them. They're going a lot of them are driven by foreign considerations.
Well, yeah, that too, because Massie and Greene have actually been America first and not wanting to, you know, use so much of our resources in the Middle East. And we have been, and it's not just during the Trump administration, of course. I mean, historically speaking, Israel is the top beneficiary of U.S. foreign aid. Coming in at number 2 is Egypt, but the only reason why Egypt comes in at number 2 is because we literally bribe them to play nice with Israel. So, like, these are...
But they still won't accept Palestinian refugees.
Well, Egypt has an overpopulation issue that's totally crushing them. And I don't think it's Egypt's responsibility to take in anyone if they can't handle an additional group of people that add to their population issue. I mean, well, but here's the thing.
Isn't Ukraine the top right now? I mean, Ukraine's the top beneficiary for the past few years.
For military aid, yeah, because it was hundreds of billions of dollars, like a quick infusion. But in terms of
long term,
it's been Israel.
Too, and then Egypt, and then,
yep.
And other stuff.
And I have to quickly follow up on a fantastic point you made a few lines ago. But you said that the Trump administration insists to the American people that their economic situation is actually better than it is.
Right.
This is giving Biden economics.
100%.
Remember when
it was such a foible of the Biden administration. It's crazy. It's being repeated by Trump
and
now.
So we had people like President Trump and President Biden himself. He was saying, oh, the economy is actually better than you think it is. You don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe your lying wallets. You actually are rich. Things are getting better. No, tariffs hurt. I'm sorry. I've been a stalwart supporter of this Trump administration, but I've also studied economics and I know how tariffs work. And 80% of tariff revenue right now is paid for by American companies and the American people.
Yeah.
My priority is American people. If this were actually paid by foreign entities and foreign companies, I'd be all for it. But no, it's us. We're footing the bill.
It's an added tax for U.S. consumers.
And
There's no question.
Why Amen. That's exactly right. And that's why just this week, President Trump decided to repeal the taxes on tropical fruits, coffee, and other items, because he realized that they hemorrhaged Republicans were hemorrhaging at the polls because of an increase in prices.
Absolutely.
Well, and the thing, too, that was so crazy was that Walmart graphic that showed that Thanksgiving dinner costs less this year. And then you look more closely at the graphic. It's 22 items last year, 15 this year, and no fresh fruits or vegetables on the menu this year. And I was looking at it, I was like, I don't think that's it. That's not how that's going to go.
There's no amount of gaslighting you can do to convince people who obviously have to pay for these things. You can't convince them that the price of food hasn't gone up.
And
it has. Like, we know.
It has, you know, there's issues with ranchers. That's a problem. Then there's been this whole bird flu thing.
And
so we know that beef and chicken are a lot. I mean, like,
oh
you
my
go
gosh,
to the
people are
grocery
going to
store
think
it's a lot.
I have to be truthful with American people and also to our viewers. The solution to the rancher situation is not to say let's import more beef from Argentina, which is his solution. I mean, come on, we're trying to be America first, so let's take care of our ranchers.
I agree.
I agree with that too.
All right, well, why don't we move on to corruption in the state of California? It's been an ongoing issue, not just during this current Newsom administration, but just historically speaking, California has been a very corrupt state with its political leadership. But this latest story is really no exception. Let's get into the details. So, the corruption in California has reached new levels with not one, but 3 different political staffers, including Governor Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff, facing some pretty serious criminal charges. Now, 2 of them have taken plea agreements. We'll get to them in just a minute, but let's actually focus on 53-year-old Dana Williamson, who is accused of basically siphoning off or stealing $225,000 from Biden's Health and Human Services Secretary, Javier Becerra, or as Biden liked to call him, Javier Baccaria, because his brain had melted by the time he was in office.
That's hilarious.
So let's take a look at this graphic. It'll show you a headline from Los Angeles Magazine. FBI surveillance captured secret meetings in Dana Williamson's corruption case. She agreed to a restrictive bail package that includes her agreeing not to drink any alcohol after her arrest on a slew of alleged corruption charges. So let's get into those corruption charges. What does that mean? Now, she served as the chief of staff for Newsom for a few years, 2 years. She left in November of 2024 after she basically came clean about the fact that the feds were investigating her and interviewing her. I think at that point, especially with Newsom looking toward a potential presidential run, they got rid of her. But according to the federal indictment, a grand jury has charged Williamson with 23 criminal counts, including conspiracy to commit bank fraud and wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States and obstruct justice. She also has been accused of illegally writing off. Get a load of this, man. The balls on some people. Writing off illegally $1 million in deductions, illegal business deductions, for things like vacations, luxury purses, private jet travel. Yes. And so she basically deducted these expenses from her,
That's insane.
taxes.
What was her idea that, like, oh, as Newsom's chief of staff, I have to maintain a certain lifestyle?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was what she was planning to.
The rot starts at the top.
Yeah, but there's more. So look, she was arrested, but she is out on bond, $500,000 bond. She put her home up as collateral. She has pleaded not guilty. And even though the investigation began about 3 years ago, this is my favorite part of the story. Her lawyer, so again, 3 years ago, that means this investigation, federal investigation, began under the Biden administration. But her lawyer is arguing, his name is McGregor Scott, no, this is politically motivated by Trump. He says that the only conclusion I can draw is this is the latest misstep taken down the wrong road by the Trump Justice Department.
Oh, sure.
No, this began under Biden, and if proven to be true, what she did is disgusting and wrong because she essentially stole from, people who donated to Javier Becerra's now dormant campaign. Okay, so there's more. So the campaign fund transfers, prosecutors said, enriched a guy by the name of Sean McCluskey. So he's one of the people who ended up taking a plea agreement, by the way, and is now cooperating with the authorities. So he's a longtime chief of staff for Javier Becerra, who was California Attorney General from 2017 to 2021. The federal authorities, and this is according to the New York Times, accused Williamson of working with McCluskey and a lobbyist based in Sacramento by the name of Greg Campbell to direct $225,000 from Becerra's campaign accounts to McCluskey from 2022 to 2024. This is my favorite part as well. The payments ultimately went to McCluskey's spouse for a no-show position, according to court documents. So essentially, this woman, Williamson, was helping to facilitate the theft, allegedly, of this $225,000 to then funnel it to, McCluskey's wife who wanted to sit her ass at home and collect a paycheck.
That's pretty egregious.
Super egregious.
Yeah, that's really a problem.
So McCluskey, again, has already agreed to a plea agreement. He admitted as part of the agreement that in 2022, he met with Williamson, who had a private practice at the time. They both agreed to this plot in which they would charge Becerra's dormant campaign account $7,500 per month as a fee for managing the money in the account. Then they funnel the cash through Williamson's private consulting business and Greg Campbell's public affairs firm to McCluskey's wife. McCluskey agreed in October to plead guilty to one count of conspiracy to commit bank fraud and wire fraud, and Campbell agreed earlier this month to plead guilty to the same crimes, as well as conspiracy to defraud the United States. Now, Williamson also lied to Becerra. I want to be clear about that. So far, there's been no evidence that Javier Becerra was in on any of this. In fact, he appears to be a victim since the money was being stolen from his account.
Can I say something quickly at that point?
Yeah.
Though, having run for office myself, the fact that he didn't know is also very damning.
Well, wasn't it after his campaign was over?
But the money was still there. It's under under his campaign's account, I knew exactly what was going on in that financial account. My name is attached to that, as any candidate should be. The fact that he had no idea that hundreds of thousands of dollars are flowing in and out, I think that's damning.
No, that is damning, and who knows? Maybe in the future,
he may
a lot
not
of
be
damning
legally
things about
responsible. I
Becerra.
think
He
he's
was
like
terrible.
ethically responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. The lack of oversight over your own campaign funds is kind of ridiculous. But I think this actually speaks to a broader problem in our political system, which is money in politics, right? Like the fact that every election cycle you see hundreds of millions. I mean, the last presidential election, Kamala Harris had $1.5 billion.
$2.5 billion.
$2.5 billion.
Didn't she run out?
Yes, and when I said she was in debt, yes, hold on. I told the country that she was in debt. They had a spokesperson from the DNC come out, release a press release calling me, essentially calling me a liar, saying that I was completely wrong. Just last month, they came out and admitted that they were now paying her debts of $20 million.
That's so crazy.
But where's my sorry, by the way? But putting that aside,
Don't hold your breath.
yeah, but Anna is totally right. The FEC is a toothless organization. No one takes them seriously. They don't inspire fear in Washington. They inspire amusement and disdain because they're just so toothless. And right now, it's basically 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, so they're locked in a quagmire. They can't operate.
Oh, the FEC.
The FEC, yeah.
Interesting. It really makes you wonder, though, how many other dormant campaign bank accounts are there with hundreds of thousands of dollars of donor money that are just being exploited by rando staffers?
Well, I can tell you, I can give you a very salient example.
Okay.
Now I'm going to give you guys all a chance to guess who it is. A certain person uses campaign funds for Botox, Louis Vuitton bags, OnlyFans accounts.
Oh, wait.
And was recently, his sentence was commuted by President Trump.
We know who that is.
No, I don't. Who? Maybe I do, but
You
George
totally know.
Santos.
George Santos.
Oh.
Our
Yeah.
favorite.
Oh, George
former-
Santos.
Exactly.
That's right.
So this is okay, he took it to an egregious level, but people do this all the time. Even Lauren Boebert, I'm sorry, Lauren.
He's at least admitted, though. He's admitted it.
He still did it. He did the crime.
yes.
And also Lauren
But he also
Boebert,
admitted
she used her campaign account allegedly to pay her rent.
Cori Bush also was using her like campaign dollars to pay her husband's security firm.
I saw that, yeah, and she defended it. She didn't
defend it,
hide
yeah.
it after it came out. She defended it as part of like legitimate spending from the
I could
campaign
see
account.
that being a little bit legitimate,
But the
still,
self-dealing,
like,
I'm uncomfortable with.
There's an issue
Yeah.
with taking money out of one pocket and
putting it in your husband's pocket, which is essentially putting it in your own pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
It seems a little weird.
if I were in her place, obviously security is a legitimate thing to spend money on. Hire a different security firm that's
at least
not
have,
related
like,
to your
at
husband.
least put out an RFP and get some contracts in there.
Yes.
See which one is best.
Totally.
There's
yeah.
also the middleman that we haven't even mentioned yet, and that's NGP and Act Blue. They siphon off so much money. They take about 3 to 4% of every single transaction.
It's a total racket.
Yeah, and
our elections have become a total racket, and you have like political consultants getting rich off of these like campaign donations. It's sick. First of all, there's like the whole issue of corruption, period, right? The fact that you have all sorts of moneyed interests buying influence.
Foreign interest too, yeah.
And foreign, yes, exactly. And by the way, when it comes to foreign interests and how they manage to influence our politicians, they don't just do it through campaign donations. They also do it by funding think tanks and nonprofits, which don't have to abide by similar rules. And that dark money certainly has an impact on influence on our politicians.
Yeah, there were some allegations that Mamdani had some foreign campaign contributions,
Really?
which are not legal. I saw something about that. Yeah, I didn't go deep into it. But of course, that's what took down Eric Adams.
Eric Adams,
foreign campaign contributions. And
Henry
we don't know.
Cuellar.
I mean, there's so many different ways that a foreign entity could get in there and mask what it is that they're doing, and we don't know how much of that is going on.
And part of the problem is, in order to solve that issue, you would need to pass laws, but the very people who are tasked with passing the laws are the very corrupt politicians who have benefited from this system.
And then those laws would have to be enforced. And we've already had a severe problem of lax enforcement of congressionally passed laws.
Yeah,
I mean, the
including
Biden
insider
administration
trading laws.
Right, and then the Biden administration just broke all of the laws with regard to border security.
Yeah.
And somehow that was fine. No one got in trouble for that.
I do want to say, though, when I was fundraising for the Biden campaign, sorry, guys. Yeah, I know I'm going to bear that shame for the rest of my life. But I actually turned away foreign spies. A Turkish spy tried to finagle his way into the Biden campaign by donating. And I had to turn him away. And he was like shouting at me on the phone. I was like, well, maybe you shouldn't have been a Turkish spy then. And the guy is actually, it's all over the news. He also tried to ingratiate himself with Eric Adams, and apparently he was successful there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Congressman Henry Cuellar, a Democratic lawmaker out of the state of Texas, I don't know how he weaseled his way out of criminal charges, but there's evidence that he was working with Azerbaijan.
Really?
Yes, there's all sorts of disgusting corruption happening every single day. Some of these politicians managed to weasel their way out of it, as did former Senator, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he just got convicted of corruption. And
Which state?
Why am I forgetting his name? Menendez.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Senator Menendez.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not only him, but also his wife.
And his wife, yes.
They had gold bars in their closet
Yep.
and a new Mercedes.
Not suspicious at all when
Exactly.
the feds find gold bars stuffed into your suit pockets in the closet. Anyway, but since the topic of immigration and foreign policy came up a little bit, I think it's worth moving on to our next and final topic, and not final topic, I apologize. Our next topic about basically Trump's interview with Laura Ingraham and what he had to say about H-1B visas. I'm just going to preface this by saying my feelings about H-1B visas are far more nuanced than what you're kind of seeing played out in the media, because I do think there's a place for these visas, but I also agree that they have been abused like crazy by companies and corporations who don't want to hire American workers and pay them fairly. Okay.
I actually agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So with that in mind, let me give you the details. So President Donald Trump has infuriated large swaths of the Republican base over his recent comments on H-1B visas. The comments were made during a conversation with Fox News' Laura Ingraham. Why don't we take a quick look?
Wages for American workers. You can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well,
I'll
give you an example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. Making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say, a country's coming in, going to invest $10 billion to build a plant, and going to take people off an unemployment line who haven't worked in 5 years, and they're going to start making missiles.
Okay, I have a lot to say about Trump's statements. Number one, I don't want foreign countries investing in companies here in the United States. I want American companies based in America hiring American workers. If that is considered nationalist ideology, I guess I'm a nationalist. But I think there's a huge problem right now of foreign entities and wealthy foreigners basically buying U.S. real estate, buying U.S. land, buying companies. Right now in downtown L.A., there was a Chinese developer who half built a skyscraper, ran out of money, went bankrupt, and dipped out.
And
so now,
is it just there?
It's just there, covered in graffiti.
That's dangerous.
It is a disaster of epic proportions. So Trump's whole thing about well, we've got these foreign companies investing in the United States. I don't want that. How about we don't want that? Number one. Number two, sorry, I'm sorry to monopolize this, but just one more thing I got to say. We have Americans in this country who are capable of doing incredible things. We need to invest in them. If we don't have the needed expertise to take our economy or our country to the next level, how about we invest in the forms of education that are necessary to train Americans so we are at the top.
Absolutely.
Everything.
Amen to that. Amen to you, sister. I was I was saying this last time, universities need to actually heed what President Trump is saying, cap the number of foreign students and give those spots to our American children. You complain about not having the necessary talent. Why not train those American kids to actually get the job done?
Connor is showing I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the skyscraper I'm talking about.
Yeah, that is pretty shocking.
It's insane. And it was like, taken over by drug addicts and stuff like that. And it's just been a nightmare dealing with that building. And it's right next to, like, basically the epicenter of, like, the sporting events, like the Staples Center in downtown LA. Anyway, go ahead.
No, what Trump was saying about H-1Bs now is directly contradictory to what he was saying in 2016 when he was running for president. And he said the H-1B system is being abused and we don't need all these H-1Bs. The Department of Labor sets the minimums that you're allowed to pay H-1B workers for different areas, and they're essentially much lower than what Americans are going to be asking for and commanding. And I've seen that. I used to work in an industry with a lot of H-1Bs, and I worked on H-1B visa applications, and like you can see it. And then other resumes would come in from Americans, and you're like, we do have people who can do this stuff. We don't necessarily need to import foreigners. And I agree with you 100%, Lindy, about the foreign students in American universities. There was some talk about how if the number of foreign students were reduced in American universities, some 15% of the lower tier colleges and universities would just close. And it's kind of like, well, what are they doing?
Maybe
what are they doing for
then.
us?
Or maybe
what about their endowments? What about the student loans that they are forcing people into debt? Like, it's all part of this giant problem. And the more government gives to students to attend these crappy schools, the less those kids are able to buy homes, the more in debt they are, and the worse our educational outcomes. Because to top it off, you have these universities teaching American kids to hate America. And then they're bringing in foreigners and they're teaching foreigners to hate America. And this is not an economic zone, right? This is our nation. This is our culture. And for a lot of us, a lot of people who were born here, my ancestors, the most recent ancestors that I have who immigrated here were in, I think, 1921, right? So it's over 100 years. And these kids can come in here, they can learn that we suck. They can take a bunch of money and resources and whatever. They can, get their visas and whatever. They can always go home. Most of us, we can't go somewhere else. I was talking to my Uber driver yesterday, and he's like, yeah, things aren't great. I'm thinking of moving back to Colombia. And I'm thinking, I can't go anyplace. This is it. This is my last stand. It's my country, And I think what you guys are saying is so important. We need to, this country needs to be for Americans, and I'm all for, legal and good immigration. But we had, during Ellis Island, 2 million people came during the whole Ellis Island period. 2 million people a year came in under Joe Biden. We need a pause on all of this.
Some people say more than that, by the way.
That's just a very conservative estimate. That's just the official number, and that's why I go with it, because that's just baseline, and it's still shocking.
Libby, you're a woman after my heart, and I am a legal immigrant, okay? I oppose all illegal immigration. I'm sorry. I'm very... If that makes me nationalist, then I'm proudly nationalist. When did being American first become bigotry? When did wanting to take care of our children first, wanting to prioritize our students first, when did that become racism?
But you know what I find so interesting about this? First off, obviously coming here legally through the proper channels. Like, we were just having a conversation with some individuals off camera who are wonderful people who have been in this country on visas, and they're trying to do it the legal way. But we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars per year in order to be here legally and to fight in order to be here as permanent residents, right? So, in order to do something about illegal immigration, I think that there needs to be better pathways for people to do it legally. There's that. But then on top of that, the other issue is, we're seeing all these images and these videos of what I feel is just performative deportations, right? You see the ICE agents going to various cities across the country and violently arresting people at Home Depot parking lots and stuff like that. But at the same time, when you look at Trump's own business practices, year after year, he keeps applying to increase the number of workers' visas that can be allocated for his businesses. And they're for jobs like service sector jobs. At Mar-a-Lago, Americans don't have enough talent to do service sector jobs? That's absurd. Obviously, it's being done in order to exploit these foreign workers, pay them less so they can maximize their profits. That's what's really happening, and it's to the detriment of the American people and the American workers at a time when so many jobs are being destroyed as a result of technological advancements like automation and AI. Now, I want to just quickly go to these videos of vintage Bernie Sanders. He's a United States senator. He caucuses with Democrats, but he's an independent. There was a video of him, an interview he did with Ezra Klein back in 2015 when he was running in the Democratic primary. And he spoke out against open border policies because he said that he specifically referred to it as a Koch brothers policy to keep wages low here in the U.S. But this video, someone dug it up, and it's even older. And I think what he's saying here, I think speaks to the hearts and minds of so many Americans who have been frustrated by the system. Let's take a look at the first part.
If poverty is increasing and if wages are going down, I don't know why we need millions of people to be coming into this country as guest workers who will work for lower wages than American workers and drive wages down even lower than they are right now.
And as we know, the principal industries which hire the bulk of illegal aliens, that is construction, landscaping,
Lou, I just heard something.
Those are all industries in which wages are declining. I don't hear that discussed on the Senate floor by the proponents of this amnesty legislation.
That's right. They have no good response. I just read something today that a lot of people coming into this country are coming in as lifeguards. I guess we can't find, that's right, we can't find American workers to work as lifeguards.
So when I think back at the 2016 Democratic primary and how there was just like this, there was a lot of hate directed at Bernie Sanders by Democratic voters because they felt like he was racist. I think this is the kind of stuff that they would point to, right? But it's not about racism. It's about wanting to take care of American workers at a time when their wages keep going down, at a time when jobs are being lost. And I want to just go to the second part of their discussion. It's a short video, but it just drives the whole point home. After that, I'll get to some of the backlash that Trump faced as a result of his comments on Laura Ingram's show.
This whole immigration guest worker concept is the other side of the trade issue. On one hand, you have large multinationals trying to shut down plants in America, move to China, and on the other hand, you have the service industry bringing in low-wage workers from abroad. The result is the same. Middle class gets shrunken and wages go down.
I mean, it's just a fact, and it shouldn't be considered a partisan issue. With that in mind, Trump did get a lot of backlash. I'm just going to give you a few examples on X, and then we'll move over to Marjorie Taylor Greene. You have Kevin Sorbo, longtime Trump supporter, who said that this is an atrocious thing to say, meaning that we don't have talent among the U.S. workforce. This will cost Republicans the midterms. There's still a lifetime until the midterms, so most voters will probably forget about it as long as Trump stops talking like this, but we'll see. You have Dominic Michael Trippi, who says, Trump's interview with Laura Ingraham was an embarrassing disgrace, easily his worst ever. MAGA is dead. Trump is out of touch, dismissive of struggling Americans and has no solutions. America last. And then Brianna Morello, who we had on the program just recently, says, this has been a rough week for President Trump. Here he is defending H-1B visas and saying we need them because not all Americans can make missiles. Hold on. Unpopular take. Why would we want foreigners making our missiles, which is a devastating point? Before we get to Marjorie Taylor Greene, go ahead.
Sorry, and I didn't mean to. I thought the tweet was done. I just want to say, do you want to hear why he's doing this?
Yeah, I'm curious. Well, why do you think it is?
Let's look at the seating chart for his inauguration. You had the CEOs of Google, Facebook, Amazon. They were all there.
You're right.
And all these companies benefit when labor costs are down. Okay, so this is a purely mercenary move, and I really hope that President Trump can go back to his original America First agenda and away from the globalist perspective. We are the United States. We are a nation state. We don't have a responsibility to care for all the people in the world. Our first and foremost priority should be to the American people themselves.
But taking care of all the people of the world is always just a cover story, right? That's always just an excuse. The real point here is to help companies and corporations keep their labor costs low, as you mentioned, and essentially exploit foreign labor by paying them less for the kinds of jobs that Americans obviously could do and would be paid more to do. Final video I want to go to is Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was asked by Dana Bash on CNN, you know, is this America first, what Trump is saying? Take a look.
Say that promoting H-1B visas to replace American jobs, bringing in 600,000 Chinese students to replace American students' opportunities in American colleges and universities, those are not America first positions.
So, you know, to her credit, she's been willing to push back against Trump if she feels that he's moved away from the very things that he campaigned on. But I also want to just say this. I do see a place for foreign worker visas. It's just that that program has obviously been abused. I think that there could be reforms, limitations to the number of people who get accepted. And more importantly, maybe we have laws that ensure that there's parity in pay. And that would then, I guess, discourage companies from...
Yeah, I mean, I think the Department of Labor was trying to create parity in pay when they made these limits on, you know, what you can pay people, because you certainly can't pay them way below the market rate for that position, but you're certainly also not paying them what Americans are asking for those positions. So I do think that that's important. But I also think it's important. Donald Trump, yes, he came on the scene with Make America Great Again, and he represented that ethos of American workers who felt that they were left behind by a Democratic Party that no longer supported workers, but, you know, supported union bosses instead. You have a bunch of people, Americans, who are looking at the leftist compassion for apparently homeless drug addicts and criminals and foreigners over Americans. And so all of those people folded into this MAGA movement. And MAGA, you know, Trump is the MAGA candidate. He was the MAGA candidate, but he's not the end of it, for sure. And so while I think that movement is struggling, and that part of the Republican Party is struggling to really figure out exactly what they're doing next and what their identity is, I think America First is a huge part of that. And I think that the people who coalesced under that will be willing to criticize Trump if he's going against what that principle is.
I love to see that, yeah.
Trump captured an ethos, right? But he isn't the only way to represent that.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really important point. And right now, what's unfolding for the Epstein files and over the Israel foreign intervention, I think it's almost like a cover for what's really going on right now. And what's really going on is succession planning. Because President Trump can't be on the ballot in 2028. So there's a lot of jostling between the Tucker Carlson wing of the party and also Ted Cruz, who is now positioned himself as the arch enemy of Tucker Carlson. A lot of people are even saying that he's angling for 2028. He's the interventionist wing. He's the let's, you know, go bomb the Middle East wing, the neoconservative wing.
But why is Cruz attacking Carlson and not Vance?
Well, I can tell you why, because of that interview in which he humiliated, and by the way, rightly humiliated. If you're going to talk about a country, then you should know how many people are in it.
Well, not only that, I mean, Ted Cruz, even in the context of that debate with Tucker Carlson, admitted, like, I was voted in to be the top representative of Israel in the United States Senate. That's not going to speak well to the American people.
You know,
that's
like
insulting.
Right now it's Ted Cruz R Texas. It should say Ted Cruz R Tel Aviv or something.
I mean, that seems to be his priority, and he admitted as such. But anyway, let's leave it there because I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about one more topic here. It's an important topic, and it goes back to the discussion about journalistic ethics. Donald Trump and how he was represented by the BBC in a recent, piece that they did. This is, in my opinion, a really good example of how you don't edit videos because the way they did it seems to be super dishonest.
Absolutely. So what happened was that BBC Newsnight, right before the 2024 election, actually aired an extremely deceptive, clipped and edited version of what Trump said at the ellipse prior to January 6th. They omitted the part where he said, I want you to be safe. I don't do anything violent. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. But Connor, can we show the juxtaposition between what they did and what he actually said?
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women?
Vital piece missing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's very underhanded and dishonest. And the fact that they thought they could get away with that is just extremely troubling. And so President Trump has rightfully been very upset about this. He is threatening to sue the BBC for $5 billion.
But there's a large swath of people that they will not see both clips. They will only see that, and they make all their decisions based off of that. I think that's how we have gotten this far.
Well, the damage is already, in terms of when you sue somebody, you have to prove damages, and the damages were already done, but it's hard to prove because he won.
Right, and that's what the BBC was saying. They were like, well, this didn't turn out to be a problem for you. You did win. They also said that it wasn't shown in America, so
who cares? Shown in America. BBC is available in the United States.
Right, but they said that because of the geolocation, no, they said geolocation, and they said it wasn't available in America. I don't know, because I don't even have cable, so I don't even watch BBC unless it's in clips, really, but or Doctor Who, but whatever. So I think so that's part of it. But also, I think that it's important to, in terms of damages, the British people kind of hate Trump, for the most part, and this isn't helping with that. Why does it make sense for a foreign state-funded media service issue propaganda to their citizens to hate the leader of another country? That's weird.
Can I just say something? Around COVID, I would say the COVID era is the era of my personal career that I'm the most ashamed of, because I was in a political bubble and I was very trusting of various legacy media and corporate media outlets, long-standing institutions like the New York Times, Washington Post, and I thought they were giving me the whole story, but they weren't. They were omitting important information. And just recently, I got a ton of backlash from some people on the left, certainly people who are defenders and supporters of Israel, because I had admitted that I'm now watching or listening to Candace Owens' podcast regularly. Now, am I doing that because I agree with everything she says? No, but I'm doing it because she is now a topic of discussion. And I don't want to trust anyone else in telling me what she said. I want to know what she's saying.
Always
in
go
full
to the
context.
primary sources.
Exactly.
Always go to the primary sources.
Watching something in its entirety is not an endorsement of that if you're in the news and you actually want to have the full picture of what's going on, right?
That's so good.
And so with what the BBC did here, it's particularly triggering to me because for the people who trust the BBC to tell them the truth, they intentionally misled the public about Trump's actual statements that day. I think that I think Trump personally is a target-rich environment, even if you're telling the truth and you're not misrepresenting what he said.
Well, and that's also, that's a super important point because they misrepresent him so much that it makes it hard to hear what the original thing is anyway.
It's so true.
So, and then you have all of these people who say, well, he could have said that. That's got the truthiness to it.
I want to share a graph of the breakdown for the BBC, the Media Action Group. Did you know that the USAID was funding them?
Isn't that crazy?
That is shocking to me. Why? I love the Brits, by the way. I'm from England. Love you guys. But come on. No, I don't want my money, my taxpayer dollars going overseas to fund the BBC.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they were funding so much foreign media. They were funding fringe LGBTQ magazines and media in Hungary because they didn't like Viktor Orban.
That's crazy to me. And I want to quickly touch on an angle that I don't think anyone has mentioned yet. It's a fact that President Trump is really good friends with Nigel Farage. He's a conservative leader in the United Kingdom, and they have an alliance. And a lot of his blustering right now has a lot to do with him trying to rev up the conservative movement in the United Kingdom. And I think that's been overlooked.
It's reform, right? Isn't it reform?
He's conservative.
Nigel Farage with reform.
The party, yeah.
Interesting.
But he's
conservative,
yeah,
for sure.
Yes.
He's like MAGA UK.
Exactly.
Sure. So do you think that the BBC, due to Trump's alliance with Farage, just has this extra layer in wanting to misrepresent him to the British people? Or to people in the UK?
I think another alliance that we should look closely at is his with King Charles. That's weird for me to say because he's been prince for so long. He and President Trump really hit it off in the past year, and I think a lot of his threats won't come to fruition. If I had to bet on this, I would say that he doesn't end up suing. because King Charles might intervene. And
Maybe.
they establish a sense of rapport. We'll see what happens. But he had a lot of success with suing CBS and ABC. I think he got $18 million from both. They basically capitulated, even though they had a better argument in court.
And to be honest with you, yeah, like the CBS 60 Minutes thing, I think that's probably the area where we might have some disagreement, because I think Kamala Harris sounded idiotic in both the edited version and the non-edited
Both
version.
answers were bad.
Really bad, yeah. But in the case of the BBC, like it's an injustice because of how they misrepresented what he said, yes. But also keep in mind that people living in the UK have no choice but to fund the BBC. So you are literally paying an institution to misrepresent the news to you, and that's unacceptable.
You know, it's really unfortunate, because I had so much respect for the BBC. I actually went on last week, and they didn't let me talk because I was presenting a pro-conservative view. But I also just want to point our viewers to the fact that they have had a history of doing shady things like this. I don't know if you guys remember back in the day with Princess Diana, an interviewer lied to her to get that interview.
Really?
The Panorama 1996 interview, they pretended to be a confidant of hers and basically lured her in, got her to agree to the interview under false pretenses, told her that people around her were scheming against her, thus fueling into her sense of paranoia. So they have had a history of resorting to these really malicious and lugubrious devices in order to get viewers or something.
Good use of lugubrious. Say that again?
Lugubrious.
Lugubrious. I like that.
Thank you.
I've read that word, but I've never heard it pronounced. That was
Yes,
great.
sinister and gloomy.
I love it. All right.
They
well,
treated her so badly, the media.
They did. I love Diana.
yeah. All right. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but this was an awesome panel. I hope you all enjoyed the discussions we had today. I want to give you all an opportunity to plug the work you're doing. Libby, I'll start with you.
I'm Libby Emmons. You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons and see everything we're doing there.
All right. Laura?
So I'm Laura Padrino with Padrino's Cuban Restaurants. We are a collection of Cuban restaurants across Broward, across South Florida, and next year, in 2026, we'll be celebrating 50 years in business. This is my legacy. It was my grandparents, handed down to my parents, and now my brothers and I have the honor of carrying that out. We'd love you to come check us out. Check us out online, padrinos.com, or on Instagram at Padrinos Cuban.
Love it. Lindy?
I'm Lindy Lee everywhere, and you can also find me on Manect. Call me.
I'm Anna Kasparian. As always, you can check me out on Manect as well. I'm on X as Anna Kasparian, Instagram as Anna Kasparian Official, because someone else stole my handle. And you can check me out on Substack as well, and youtube.com/The Young Turks, the show that I'm the EP and main host of. Hope you guys check me out there as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. We love you all, and we'll see you next week.